Well, as noted with the bureau chiefs, the Prime Minister is now in India, arriving in the city of Mumbai mid-afternoon local time, but very early morning in Canadian time today, embarking on a trade mission that could, if the speculation is correct, end with a number of trade deals being signed before this trip is done. Take a look at the official schedule. The Prime Minister will be in India, Mumbai, followed by New Delhi. He will then, that will include up to and including March the 2nd. And from there, the trade mission will move on to Australia, first in Sydney, then to Canberra, where the Prime Minister will address the Australian Parliament. And then it is off to Japan before heading home. A very busy schedule as Parliament here in Ottawa enters a break week. So we've talked a lot about the India leg of this trip. Let's now focus in on the Australian portion of this trade mission. Mark Romoff is the chair and the CEO of the Australia-Canada Economic Leadership Forum, an organization that works to broaden and deepen ties between the two countries. Mark, always good to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, sir. It's always great to spend time with you.
Thank you. So listen, Canada and Australia certainly have deep and historical ties. The two countries do work together in international forums. But correct me if I'm wrong here, neither country counts the other country as a top 10 trading partner. So what is the potential of doing better if there are great distances between the two countries? And in many ways, Canada and Australia already have similar economies.
Yeah, in fact, there are no two countries that are as similar as Canada and Australia for a whole bunch of reasons. But there is tremendous opportunity here to build a relationship between our two countries. And that's been really the basis for the Australia-Canada Economic Leadership Forum, which began back in 2010. And the intent there is to bring leaders from both countries together, senior business leaders, government officials, and political leaders from both countries come together once every 18 months to explore opportunities to build a relationship around trade, investment, and tourism. Tourism, by the way, is also equally important because Australia is in the list of top 10 countries of foreign tourists to Canada. So there's lots of opportunity here, and I'm happy to walk you through a few of those.
Yeah. Do list them out a little bit, because I think again people do wonder what's the potential, because it's not like as if Canada have not already had friendly relations, for centuries.
Yeah, that's true, but clearly the world has changed, and under our new Prime Minister, there is a different motivation behind his international interests and his focus on international partnerships. As you know, he's very committed to building a stronger, more independent, and more resilient Canada. And Australia is a good partner in that context because we have this long-standing relationship. Our trade and investment is encouraging. Trade has not been as big an element of the relationship as we think it can be. We can talk a bit more about that. But the reality is around investment. Today, there's more than $200 billion in two-way investment between Canada and Australia. And it's very much in the mining sector and also with the financial institutions like the pension funds that are very actively engaged together in projects both in Australia and in Canada. And there's great opportunity here to grow that, particularly given the focus in both countries at the moment on building nationwide infrastructure projects. You've heard our Prime Minister speak about that, and the opportunity for our pension funds to work together is really quite enormous. And I'm happy to talk about that too. But most importantly, there's already a long-standing relationship there.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to actually build on the investment front, because I think for most people at home, if, for example, they get a bottle of wine made in Australia and an Australian gets a Roots sweatshirt made in Canada, that's an easier translation for people at home. But when you talk about investment, talk about how important that is, because really when you talk about investment, what you're talking about is a means of generating economic activity for Canadians with Australian dollars and for Australians with Canadian dollars, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And as I mentioned, total investment more than $200 billion now, very impressive number. And the reality is that our Maple 8 pension funds have been active in Australia for years, very significant investments in Australian toll roads, electricity grids, sustainable infrastructure, and even digital assets like data centers. An example is the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board, CPPIB, which has a major investment in a company called AirTrunk. And that is all about data centers and how important they are today when you think about AI and the implications for energy needs. So that's one very good example. At the same time, Australian pension funds are now looking to go international. They have historically been very domestically oriented. The situation is quite different from between Canada and Australia. We've got our funds that are going overseas, and government wants them to be more active in Canada. It's the reverse in Australia. So now is an opportunity here as we look to have our pension funds build their portfolios in Canada and Australia to look more at Canada as a partner, really important. And you would have seen, for instance, in the last few weeks, that a major pension fund called IFM Investors established an office in Toronto and are now partnering with local pension funds, in this particular case with the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, where they together bought a company called Enwave, which you might know well. Mm-hmm. And that's a major investment and really indicative of the kinds of projects that can be developed through these kinds of partnerships.
So with this trade mission then, what's your hope? That the means of doing this kind of transnational investment becomes more easy with less regulation? What are you looking for in this trip then?
We're looking for a couple of things. One, we need to put more of a spotlight on the Canada-Australia relationship. As good as it is and as well known as it may be known to some people, it's not well enough understood because we have a little bit of that tyranny of distance that you referred to just a few minutes ago. So it's a long way away, but the reality is that there is opportunity now, given that both countries are facing the same global realities. There's an opportunity here to partner. And whether it's on major infrastructure projects, pension plan investments for sure, that's one, critical minerals, defense and security, a huge issue, and digital innovation involving AI, quantum technologies. These were all areas of real opportunity where we have the potential to partner. People often see Australia and Canada as competitors, but the reality today is that we have an opportunity to collaborate in ways that were not as possible in previous years, but because of the current situation and coercive trade policies, both in the US and in China, we have an opportunity here to work together to learn from each other on how to deal with these partners. And hopefully that will allow us, in fact, to build the partnerships which will remove our dependence upon these other markets and really build opportunities between our two countries and to work together in the Indo-Pacific. Both countries, of course, have very big Indo-Pacific strategies, and we see opportunities for Canadian companies to partner with Australian companies in other parts of the Indo-Pacific in the same way that Australia sees partnership opportunities with Canadian companies in North America. So there is a real good match between the interests of both countries, and it's important. And we've got more and more companies that are looking at establishing footprints in the other countries. So I'll give you one example. Dollarama, for instance, a well-known Canadian company, just made a major acquisition of a retail network in Australia, which will allow them to grow their Australian footprint enormously. At the same time, GHD, a major infrastructure company in Australia, recently established a second office in Montreal, in Quebec, and are adding more than 400 employees as a consequence of establishing that business. Mm-hmm. So there are opportunities here to grow both ways. And I think this visit by the Prime Minister puts a spotlight on those opportunities. And I think you're going to find that he will explore those very effectively while he's there and bring home some very significant outcomes that we'll learn about when he comes back, obviously.
Okay.
Trade and investment is one, defense and security as another, which is critically important.
Mark, thank you for that. As you say, an important trip here. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, let's continue the conversation. I got lots more I want to talk to you about, particularly the Joran over the horizon radar system.
We will talk about that.
$6 billion acquisition the largest export from Australia, military products anywhere in the world, and it's in Canada. And you can thank our respective prime ministers for arranging that deal.
Okay. Mark,
Thanks,
thank you.
Michael.
We'll chat soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah, for sure.